Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming tonight for this budget information session. We've been, as you know, holding these sessions throughout Fiji for the past week and a half or so. The reason why we started doing this is because we started about 2-3 years ago having budget consultations, and that was before the budget. And so we went around getting people's views. But the feedback we received from the general public was that, why don't you also hold consultations after you've done the budget, so we know exactly what is in the budget. So we've been doing so. We've been at universities, etc. And today, this morning, we were in Natambua at FNU. Tonight we're here. Tomorrow morning we're at University of Fiji, and then in the evening we're at Korovuto. Saturday morning we're having a public meeting like we're having one here now in Latoka in the morning, the Sugar Hall, and then in the afternoon in Bar Civic Center. Then on Monday we go off to Savu, Draketi, the following day in Lambasa, the university, and also having public meetings. We like to keep it very informal, so I'll just do a very short presentation, very quickly explain a few things on what are the budget announcements made, and also some of the fundamentals regarding the economy itself, where we are as an economy, and why we make certain policy decisions, etc. I'm accompanied this evening by the Permanent Secretary for Economy, Makreta Konrote, Kamal Gandor, who is with Planning in the Ministry of Economy, Shiri Gandor, who is also the Head of Fiscal Policy Planning, and also we have the other two heads within the Ministry of Economy, Pankaj Singh, who is the Head of Debt, and also Iso Talamaimbao, who is the Head of Budget and the day-to-day financing of the various ministries. You'll have to excuse me, I'm quite sick, so I'm sounding a bit flu. If I start coughing, please excuse me. Now, what we'll do is we have the major budget initiatives, the major revenue policies, and also the economic update. And of course, things like debt. A lot of people seem to be talking about debt in Fiji without actually knowing what debt is all about. Now, the budget actually builds upon previous budgets we've had. In fact, many of the announcements we made this time around, we had given clues to this previously in other budgets, but people obviously did not pick up on it. Huge focus on, again, on education, water, electricity, social protection, health, and also building upon the very strong fiscal strength that we have. So, first one, we now give $1,000 for newborn baby as long as the family earns less than $30,000 a year. If it's a single mother, then the mother must be earning $30,000 or less. And this $1,000 is very simple. You have to do a couple of things. Apart from the fact you should be earning less than $30,000 or less, you must register the baby. Many people in Fiji don't register their children until they're about to go to school. This is why after 6 years, when they're all about to go into class 1 or year 1, then they all start rushing off to BDM. A few years ago, we actually went out and did a sweep of the country. We found something like 24,000 to 25,000 Fijians did not even have a birth certificate. Some of them were as old as 35, 45, 55 years old. So in this way, we'll get people to register the babies. Once you register the baby, at the BDM office, you give the preference of your bank you want to deal with. They'll give you a letter. You immediately take that letter to the bank. They'll open the account. The account will be opened under the baby's name. And the person to operate the account will be the mother. And you can use up to $500 immediately. The other $500 will be kept in the account until the baby goes to class 1 or year 1, just to help them at that point in time. We made an arrangement with the banks. The banks won't charge any fees for the first 6 years on that account. But the bank will pay interest. The other thing we're trying to do is also try and create a culture of savings. In Fiji, we're not very good at savings. Money comes, money goes. So the whole idea is that, for example, if you have an account open under the baby's name, hopefully when the baby turns 1, you have a birthday party and some uncle gives some money, you put the money in the account. So you have a savings culture being built. Somebody asked me the other day, what if I'm having my 10th baby? No problem, we still pay it out. Okay. Somebody asked the other day, what if the mother is single? Yes, we'll still pay. Somebody asked the other day, what if the mother is a teenager falls pregnant? Yes, we will still pay. It doesn't mean when teenagers will have babies now. It just means we have to look after the mothers. We've increased maternity leave from 84 days to 98 days. Under the current system, before we made these amendments, pregnant women could be entitled to maternity leave for 84 days. We've now simply increased it by another 2 weeks, because obviously they need a bit more time, either post-birth or after birth too. So the option is there. Some women choose to take the maternity leave a week before they give birth. Some take it off a few weeks or a few months before that, a few weeks before. It's up to them. We've now introduced also what we call paternity leave. Paternity leave is obviously applicable only to the father of the baby. So when your partner, your wife gives birth or is about to give birth, you can take 5 days paid leave. You don't have to take it all at once. You can take 1 day, 2 days, whatever it is, but you're entitled to 5 days leave. We like the fathers to be more involved with the rearing of the child. Some fathers need to change the diapers of the children. So this is part and parcel of giving that assistance for the family, bonding. We've also introduced another set of leave which is called 5 days family care leave. A lot of people in Fiji, for example, if my son has a car accident now, God forbid, and I have to go and stay in hospital for 2 days or 3 days with my son or my daughter or my husband or my wife or my parents, for people to take time off work, there's no specific provision. People normally take the annual leave. So what we're saying now, if it's to do with some family care leave, you're entitled to 5 days leave. And that's obviously immediately, for your family members that you need to take time off. If you get sick, you take sick leave. If your father or mother gets sick, you need to take time off because they're admitted in the hospital, you take family care leave. Now somebody said to us, you've given all these new leaves. What will happen to productivity? So what we've said is that now we're trusting the people of Fiji, or employees of Fiji, we're giving them this additional leave. We hope that when they are at work, they'll actually work very hard and they'll appreciate the fact that they're now entitled to all this paid leave. But we also recognize that some businesses, to help them, if they're going to give their employees or workers paternity leave and 5 days family care leave, they're entitled to take off 150% as tax deduction to help their businesses. So you're running a service station, the people who work for you, if one of the bus attendants, his wife gives birth, or is about to give birth, he's entitled to 5 days paternity leave. This full pay that you pay him, you can claim there's 150% tax deduction from the tax department. Now, we're giving over $1 billion for the education sector. You can see over here that education became free in 2014. So the education amount went up to $520 million. Since then, of course, we've also introduced scholarships and TELS. So every year it increases. This also went up because of the fact that we had to rebuild all the schools after Cyclone Winston. Cost us nearly $200 million. A lot of schools were damaged. Even though the schools may be run by faith-based organizations, different managements, we are still building it for them. Of course, this year is $1.035 billion. How is that $1.350 billion, $1.035 billion spent? Ministry of Education, of that, gets $535.4 million. All the salaries of teachers in all the schools in Fiji, except for very few private schools, are paid for by the Fijian government through the Ministry of Education. There's over 10,000 teachers. They of course receive pay rises too. A principal in a large school before used to get paid a salary of about $38,000, $39,000. That same principal today gets paid nearly $70,000. That's the level of pay rise that's been given to people who head various schools. The bus fare, all that money sits here. Free bus fare, subsidized bus fare, nearly $20 million a year we give in bus fares. Free milk, all their running expenses, etc. Also all the government school expenses sit there too. The government schools in Fiji are Natambua High School, ACS, QVS, RKS, Lambasa College, there's a couple of the others. Then of that, $123.8 million goes to what we call higher education institutions, of which we give $104.8 million in operating grant just to run those universities. So we give USP $33 million, University of Fiji $4.2 million, Fiji National University $65.1 million, CATD 600,000, Corpus Christi 100,000, Fulton College 100,000, Montfort Technical Institute, Boys Town 500,000, 700,000, Sangam Institute of Technology 200,000, Vivekananda Technical College 200,000. These institutions are certified by the Higher Education Commission. Then we give capital grants to higher education institutions, in other words to build things. The only university that gets a capital grant from us is FNU, because it's 100% funded by the Fijian government. We're giving them $6 million to build a campus in Lambasa. Nasinu campus is being upgraded, $4 million. We're putting vet labs, these are animal, husbandry and animal doctors, whatever you may call them, livestock shed, Coronivia, $4 million, Maritime Academy, $5 million. $90 million is going to rehabilitation of schools. We're still finishing off and paying off some of the bills from Cyclone Winston, but also Josie, Kenny and Geeta cost us also money to rebuild schools. We have to do that too. So that 90 million is there. Now, we're spending $43.8 million in paying for what we call the National Toppers. As you know, we have a Toppers scheme now. So anybody that gets a full scholarship is called a National Topper. It's now given, of course, based on merit, based on your marks. Not based on religion or ethnicity or province or whatever, whoever you know, doesn't, and nothing of that. It's to do on merit, and also nearly 70% of the areas in which we give scholarships are science-based subjects. There's a shortage of people in the science areas. Foresters, marine scientists, doctors, nurses, engineers, all those areas. We give TELS this year alone will cost us $205.6 million. These are the students who don't have a scholarship, but go to university, they cannot pay their fees, we paid for them. Or if they earn now less than, their parents earn less than $50,000, they want living allowances, we give it to them. So the bill for that this year alone is $205.6 million. We've got new civil service scholarships, 2.3 million, and other scholarships training of 7.2 million. And I'll show you how this is broken down. So we used to have 630 Topper scholarship, it's now gone up to 950. We've increased the number of Topper scholarship. Of course, as the economy does well, we can do more scholarships. Anybody who gets a Toppers does not have to pay us back. You got it because you got very high marks. But there's only one requirement, you work in Fiji. If you want to migrate, you pay us back. But if you don't migrate, you stay in Fiji, you work in Fiji, you don't have to work for government, you can work for the private sector. We don't care as long as you work in Fiji. We've added 20 new scholarships. These are for areas of study that you cannot get at undergraduate level in Fiji. So assuming your son or daughter finishes year 13 and they want to become an architect, there's no undergraduate study in architecture in Fiji. USP does not offer it, FNU, nor does it University of Fiji. So they have to go overseas. So what we are saying, in these areas of study, we have 20 positions left, 20 positions if you want to go overseas and do studies in that area. Obviously a lot of people want to do this. So it'll be very hard fought over. The best person will get it. So you don't have town planning degrees in Fiji. You don't have a degree in clinical psychology, speech therapist, forensic science, biomedical engineering. None of these areas do you actually have undergraduate studies in Fiji. So we can give that too. We're also offering now 50 local awards for teachers in service. There are some teachers, very good teachers, who only have diplomas. We will now give them a scholarship to upgrade to degree level. And these are the teachers in these areas. Maths and physics. There is a shortage of maths and physics teachers in the Fijian education system. In 4 or 5 years' time, if we don't train people, we won't have any maths or physics teachers left. So if you want to upgrade from a diploma to bachelor's in maths, physics, English, information technology, industrial arts, special education, early childhood education, we'll actually pay for you to do this. But there's only 30 positions left, so people have to compete for it. We also have a program where teachers who already have a bachelor's degree, if they want to do masters or graduate degree or PhD in maths, physics or English, they'll also be eligible for this. And we'll pay for that too. I remember when I was young in high school many, many years ago, we had teachers who had masters in English who were teaching us in high school. It's very rare to get a teacher who's got masters in English to teach at a high school in Fiji now. Very rare. We obviously want to be in that space again. We also want to give PhD scholarships for civil servants, but also people who work outside. So you may be working in the private sector, and you may be very good, for example, in tourism, or teacher training, or fisheries and forestry. We will actually pay for you to do a PhD. We will pay for you to even go overseas too, for these 10 overseas awards, postgraduate studies. A few years ago, we started funding children with disability to go to universities. There's quite a few of them now at university. There's one lady who's about to graduate. She cannot speak. She only does sign language, but she's about to get a degree in one of the mainstream studies, areas of study. So we're increasing the allowances to make it in alignment with the scholarship scheme. We made a few changes to TELS. Before, if your children, if you earn less than $25,000, then your children could actually get allowances given to them under TELS. Now we've increased it to $50,000. So if you earn up to $50,000, your children can actually get TELS allowance. Apart from us paying for their fees, they can also get additional allowances too. We've increased bus fare allowance for students. These are university students to $30 a week. We've also created 30 places for what we call graduate positions for doing MBBS, which is to become a doctor. And these positions are for those people who may have already done a science degree, or somebody who's already done pharmacy. Maybe working as a pharmacist now, we can get them to come and do medicine. There's a shortage of doctors too, of course. Now, TELS is a loan. TELS stands for Tertiary Education Loan Scheme. Now, we've been toying around with this idea. If you get TELS, you have to pay the loan. It's not free. Some politicians are coming around saying, don't worry, we'll make university education free. Let me give you a few hard facts. Today, 50% of the population is below the age of 27. 70% of the population is below the age of 40. All of you over the age of 40 are in the minority, including myself. Those of you below 40 are the majority. 50% is below the age of 27. So we have a very young population. When you have a young population, what does it mean? You'll get more babies produced. It's a fact. Young people produce more babies. A lot more fertile. What does it mean? The kids who are in high school, the kids who are in university, a lot more to come after them. As it is today, the TELS money that we've paid out has already gone over $700 million. So if somebody's going to come along now and say we're making university completely free, it's a big con job. It's not sustainable. You'll have to take the money from somewhere else. It's not sustainable. They're not talking about high schools or primary schools, they're talking about universities. Why? Because university students can vote. High school students don't vote, most of them anyway. Primary school students don't vote. But what we've done, we've come up with a scheme. If you, for example, your son, daughter, or yourself, if you, for example, get full TELS, which is we pay about $7,000 a year, approximately, for TELS. Now, if you've studied for 3 years, and all the other expenses included, you may have a debt of, say, about $35,000 at the end of it all. Once you get the debt, you remember you don't start paying your debt until you start working. So if you come out of university, you don't get a job, you don't pay the debt until you start working. Then it gets automatically deducted through the taxation system. And you cannot deduct more than 20% of your salary to do the repayments. But what we are saying, if a student who is now working can pay 50% of their debt in 3 years or less, we write off the other 50%. Now, why have we done that? Because if they're not going to pay it quickly, they might take them 10, 15 years to pay it. By the time they pay us that dollar value in 10, 15 years' time, it does not have the same value. Because the dollar we give you today will be far more than the dollar in 15 years' time. So we'd rather that they pay us 50% in 3 years or less. We'll get that money, we can fund more schools, more university kids coming through. If you pay your debt, if you pay 75, within 3 to 6 years, we write off 25%. You pay 90%, within 6 to 8 years, we write off 10%. That's applicable for all areas of study. Over here, 100,000, these are the people who become pilots. You know, the flying school. It costs $150,000. That's why we don't have that many positions. Not everybody gets TELS for being pilots. What we do is we check with Fiji Airways. If Fiji Airways says to us, we can only take in 5 pilots, we only offer 5 TELS school positions. We pay for only 5 students. Because obviously it's a lot of money. Because if you talk to most of the young, in particular men, they all say, oh, everybody wants to become a pilot. But the fact of the matter is most of them may not have good eyesight. They may not be able to handle being in a cockpit and there's a fire around them. Psychologically they may not be strong enough, etc. Now what are the other things? We've created a new Ministry of Housing and Community Development. As you know, we've had this scheme, but we refined it. First home purchase grant. If you earn less than $50,000 a year, and you're buying your first home or you're building your first home, you go through a bank to apply for a loan, we will contribute $15,000 or $10,000 towards the purchase of your home or towards the building of your home. We don't give you the money, we put the money in the bank. But you have to go through a bank. If you earn more than $50,000 but less than $100,000, we give $10,000 and $5,000. It's a grant. You don't pay us back. We just want you to build your first home or buy your first home. Because in Fiji, the rate of home ownership is very low. Very few people own their own homes and a good home. So you want to increase that. But the other thing we have to start thinking about is how we conceptualize a house, a home. We think that when you say build a first home or buy a first home, must be a block of land and a house. But that's not the only way to own a house. You can own a house through what we call strata title. So you have this double-story building here. You could have on the top floor, first one could be a 2-bedroom house, 1 bedroom, 3 bedroom, etc. Shade roofs. That's what you have in places like Singapore. So you own that. You get a 99-year lease over that. The cost of owning strata title is far less than having your block of land with a house on it. So in that way, that could be a first property. So a young person who's come out, done his or her university degree, they've become a teacher. They might want to buy the first 1-bedroom flat. It's theirs. Once they buy it, they have an asset. When they want to borrow some more money, they can go to the bank and say, this is my asset, I want to borrow some more money. And the bank will give it. A lot of people at the moment, they want money, they go to the bank says, where's your asset? I have nothing. So they go to the money lender. And I can tell you, I've seen some footage. You know, whenever, if those of you who work for other people, when your salary comes into your bank account, normally the money gets transferred to your account at about 3 a.m. in the morning. If you go and check your account by midnight, the money won't be there. Around about 3 a.m. the money will hit your account. I've seen CCTV footage. If you go to an ATM machine, around about 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m., you'll see this guy with a hood with this many ATM cards coming taking out all the money. That's the money lender. A lot of people give their ATM card as security. Then during the day they will line up in the bank because they don't have the ATM card. So we want less people to go to money lenders. Money lenders obviously charge you very heavy interest rates. So this is why we're doing that. We've also introduced a new program. If you want to buy a first land, we're looking at basically buying leases, e-tauke leases or state land leases. So a lot of people say, look, you know, the TLTB is selling those lots for $15,000, 99-year lease, residential lease. But I don't have $15,000. I can do the lease payments on a yearly basis, but I don't have $15,000. We will pay $10,000 towards the purchase of the lease. If you earn less than $50,000, we won't give you the money, we'll pay it to TLTB. Or we'll give it to Lands Department. Because the moment you buy a first land, you can build your own house. Last year, we made an announcement, we made an arrangement with the Reserve Bank of Fiji. We said if low-income people wanted to go and borrow money to build, the Reserve Bank of Fiji will lend to those banks who want to lend to those people at 1% interest rate. Then the banks put a margin. But they cannot charge more than 5%. This is why low-income people who have actually bought a home, since the new announcement was made last year, they're paying 5% or less. Some people I know are paying with home finance 4.3%. But what we've announced here is we're saying those people now will be eligible for another 1% reduction. We will pay for that, to reduce it from 4.3 to 3.3 for 3 years. So less burden for you, so you'll get encouraged to buy a first home. Now, we've also set aside $750,000 for covering the cost of land surveys. Now, land survey, a lot of people live in what we call vaka vanua arrangements, or some people have what we call an agreement to lease. But they're not getting a proper lease because land has not been surveyed. And they can't afford to pay for the survey of the land. It costs $4,000, $5,000. There's one place in Nosori called Vudi. I don't know how many of you know Nosori. A lot of people there have been living there for years, but the land has not been surveyed. So we'll pay for that. You make an application with us, you go to any legal aid office, fill out the form, comes to us, we'll look at it, we'll pay directly the surveyor, we won't give you the money. As long as you get your land surveyed, then you can get a proper lease. Of course, we've got social housing now, 1/3, 2/3, that used to be with the DOs, that's now come under this ministry. But we're actually refining this policy and we'll be making some announcements in respect of that. And of course, we're continuing to issue proper leases to Fijians living in informal settlements. Now, before I go on to the next slide, at the moment, if you say get sick, you wake up in the morning like I'm feeling now. Yesterday I went to the doctor, last night before coming to the West. Now, you may, if you cannot afford to go and see a private doctor, you go to the health center or you go to the hospital. Namaka Health Center, you go to Nadi Hospital. A lot of people go in the morning. They wake up in the morning, they're not feeling well. They work for the roading company. He does not want to miss work. So I'll go to the hospital. So maybe the doctor will write me a prescription, give me some antibiotics, then I can go to work. But when I go to the hospital, there's a long queue. Now, if you go to countries like Australia and New Zealand, for that what you call a minor ailment, you don't go to the hospital. You go to your local private doctor, what you call GP, general practitioner. And, like in Australia, the government will pay for your visit to the private doctor. That's what we are going to introduce in Fiji from the 1st of Jan. So if you wake up here, there's a GP in Votualevu, you go and visit the GP. I've got the flu, can you please check me, maybe give me antibiotics, write a prescription, you go. We'll pay for that visit to the GP. Of course, if you've cut your finger, deep gash, your finger is falling off, you have a chest pain, you go to the hospital. That's what you call a serious problem. But for minor ailments, you go and see the GP. In this way, we also, for example, if you live in Votualevu, we'll get you to see the doctor in Votualevu. So you have a doctor close by. You'll go there, your husband will go there, your wife will go there, your children will go there. He or she becomes your family doctor. They know your family history then. So you've been seeing this doctor for 2-3 years. After 2 years you get a major chest pain, they'll probably know whether you're having a heart attack or not. Then say, look, you better go to the hospital or go to Lotoka very quickly now, or I'll call the ambulance. That's what happens overseas. And that's what we're introducing from the 1st of Jan of next year. All the details will be given out soon. But who's going to pay for it? That's the major question. Who's going to pay for it? It costs money. Now, the other reason why we're also doing this is because many private doctors don't go to many areas. I don't know how many private doctors, if there's any in Votualevu. Is there anyone in Votualevu? One. Once you start having this, you'll see another doctor probably come and open up a surgery there, because they know there's a lot of business. There are places like Korovo town, Nambuwalu, Nasarawanga, Senganga, some places between Lotoka and Ba. There's no doctors, no private doctors whatsoever. So everybody goes to the health center. Even if I've got an ear ache or something, maybe just a small ointment is required, everybody will go to the doctor. So everybody complains about the long queues. So in this way, we've also got funding available to encourage doctors to go and set up their surgery in areas where there are no doctors, in rural areas. We probably need a rural doctor up in Nosori Highlands. So this is what the part and parcel of what we're going to do. How we're going to fund it is through the FNTC levy. At the moment, those of you who employ people, this gentleman here, I'm sure there are other business people here, 1% of the entire salary, the 1% of what they pay as salary, has to be paid to FNTC, as what you call FNTC levy. That's been paid for the past number of how many decades. That money was used for what we call training. If they send somebody for training, they can claim the money back, but most people did not. We collect approximately, well not we, FNU collects approximately $21 million a year from that. So what we're saying from the 1st of Jan, 50% of that $21 million will go towards paying for the GP cost that you're going to have. So we're not borrowing money or whatever, we're simply reallocating money. So 50% of the $21 million will go towards paying for your visits to the GP. 40% of that will go towards paying for what we call workers' compensation. At the moment, as the law stands, each employer is supposed to have workers' compensation insurance. Now, if I, for example, am working, I work for the road making company, I run my truck off, and I get squashed to death or whatever. Then I have to claim workers' comp. We'll see whether the employer has workers' comp or not, may be easier. The law as it stands, we have what we call contributory negligence too. He might say, no, he came to work drunk. That's why he had the accident. So he's partially to blame for it. From the 1st of Jan, we have what we call a no-fault system. As we have with third-party insurance, that's gone now. We have a no-fault system now with that too. So, 40% of the $21 million will fund this. What it means from the 1st of Jan next year, if I'm at work, I put my finger in the machine, my accident, my finger gets chopped off, I don't have to go and say that, oh, it wasn't my fault, it was my fault, it was my boss's fault. I'm at work, I need to be paid out, period. But there's a price for my finger. Like if you go to New Zealand, you work in New Zealand, if I'm working, I'm driving, my finger gets chopped off, if I'm right-handed, the value of my finger on this arm will be more than the value of the finger in this arm. And you get that money paid out. No lawyers involved, no court system involved, you simply get a price that you get paid out. Of course, if you want more money, you can go to the court at your own expense. In the same way before, on the third-party insurance, if you have some kid over here who comes out of school, runs out in front of the bus, gets hit by a car, under the old system, you probably won't get paid out. Because the child's fault because he ran out in front of the bus, not the driver's fault. That's of course changed now. The child gets hit, road accident, nobody's fault, gets paid out. That's how the system works now. So from the 1st of Jan, that's what will happen with workers' comp, and 40% will go towards that. Of course, FNTC continues for at 0.1%. We are also now insuring social welfare recipients and civil servants. We started this with cane farmers, copra farmers, dairy farmers, rice farmers. Everybody has a basic cover now. It's only cost us $50 a year. If somebody is already receiving social welfare, assuming I'm receiving social welfare, if my house catches on fire, who do you think I'm going to go running to for money? Government. So, we're covering ourselves. We'll get the insurance money, we'll give that to you. No additional funding paid out from our pockets. If a person has got social welfare, dies, the family gets $3,000. They get $1,000 for funeral expenses. Gets personal injury, gets paid out $3,000. So we're covering them and also civil servants and members of the discipline force. We are currently working on some insurance for homes from cyclone and crop insurance. We hope to have these products out by November of this year. Just to let you know, in the home care, I don't know how many of you received home care, we paid out $110 million. For Help for Homes under Winston, we paid $125 million. We cannot keep on doing this every year if we get a cyclone every year. So what we're trying to do is get insurance coverage for ourselves. So if, for example, this is Fiji, the cyclone goes down this path, we have what we call parametric insurance. Everybody in this area will be covered, the low-income families. There'll be a price, so everybody might get a payout of $3,000. We'll get insurance to pay for that. But we've set aside $1 million in the budget to pay for the premium. With somebody is to pay the premium. So that's what we're doing. Very quickly, digital. As you know, now in Fiji, you can now watch television on your phone. 80,000 people are already doing that in Fiji. All you have to go to your app, download wireless platform, you can watch free-to-air television, 8 channels on your phone. Anywhere in Fiji now you can get wireless television. Free-to-air television, I hope you've got it. All you need is a set-top box. If you earn less than $30,000, we give you for free. Connected to your TV, you can watch 8 channels. No monthly subscription, nothing. If you earn more than $30,000, you buy one of your own. But it's only about $95. Now, apart from that, we are also connecting a lot of the apps will be here. In a few months' time, you can register babies on the phone, give notification. You can do title searches, company searches, all of that will be on the phone. So you don't have to go running around to all the government offices. You'll get an identification number, you can do all of that on the phone. Also, we've set up what we call free Wi-Fi hotspots. In Nadi, it's that park next to the bus stand. In a few weeks' time, we'll be launching it there. Once you go there, the Wi-Fi speed will be very fast. And the bandwidth will be very broad. And you'll get 1 hour for free. We already launched it at Sukuna Park. We'll be doing it in various other places in Fiji. But we're also connecting all the FNU campuses with free Wi-Fi. In other words, free internet for these kids. Now, the other thing that we're doing, this is very important for us, promoting electronic transactions. You go down to the Shop and Save supermarket at the moment and you buy some groceries. Or you go to the service station. The bill is $50. You don't have any cash, you take out your ATM card. Right? Your card. And you pay through your card. The machine through which you swipe your card is called a POS machine. Point of sale. That's what POS means. Point of sale transactions. The point where you're doing the sale or the purchase, that's where you swipe your card. Now, we want more people to carry out electronic transactions. And I'll tell you why. Because more transactions obviously done electronically, more people have point of sale machines, it's easier for you, you don't have to carry money all the time because you might get robbed or you might drop it. Now at the moment, when you go to Shop and Save or anywhere or the service station, when you swipe your card to pay through your card, the bank charges you 40 cents fee. But they charge the merchant 30 cents. So the bank makes 70 cents on each transaction. 40 cents from you, 30 cents from the shopkeeper. We've got an arrangement now with the banks from the 1st of Jan, you no longer have to pay the 40 cents. It'll be free for you. The merchant still has to pay 30 cents, but we're trying to get them to bring it down. We might actually subsidize it. Because the more people have point of sale machines, the better it is. I can go to a shop in New Zealand, those of you who've been to New Zealand, I can buy a bottle of water on my ATM card. If I go into his service station, he'll say, go away. Minimum sale, $10, right? Minimum sale, $10. But if it does not cost him much, maybe it costs him 5 cents, he'll allow you to buy this bottle of water with your card. More sale. Now, The other reason, which is a very important reason, why we want you to do more electronic transactions. So, when I go to the service station to buy something, I have an ANZ bank account. What's your account? Westpac. When I pay the $50, I swipe the card, when I pay $50, the money goes directly from my ANZ account into his Westpac account. Right? He does not have to go and bank the $50. It goes directly into his account. That means the money has not been taken out of the banking system. The money stays in the banking system. When there is more money in the banking system, so all of us could be doing electronic transactions now, but the money never goes out, physically does not go out. When the money does not physically go out, it means the banks still have the cash. When the banks have lots of cash, when you want to go and borrow money, the interest rate will be cheaper. Right? But if we all take out money to pay other people, it's all the cash is taken out of the system. When there's less money with the banks, the cost of money becomes expensive. Because the banks will have less cash. You want to borrow, you said, okay, I've got less cash, but I can give it to you for 15%, 8%, 10%. But if there's plenty of cash, I can lend to you for 3-4%. That's the advantage of doing electronic transactions, because the money stays within the financial system. So he gets his money, I give my money, he then pays somebody else electronically. The money moves, people get paid, people making profit. But the money does not leave the system. The point of sale machine, the machine costs about 500 Australian dollars. And it's about 750 Fijian. So we actually have a subsidy built into that. We'll actually get more shops to have more point of sale machines. Health services, just to very quickly highlight 2 key points. We're setting up public-private partnership, a hospital in Lautoka and Ba. PS Economy, Shiri and I were in India about a week and a half ago, met with various stakeholders. So the way it's going to work is that FNPF, together with a chosen hospital operator, whether from India or Australia, wherever, whoever is successful, has a successful bid, will run Lautoka and Ba hospitals, but there are certain conditions attached. At the moment, the one medical problem that more people are dying of than any other illness is heart problems. If any one of us now, God forbid, has a heart attack, there is not a single Fijian doctor in Fiji that can carry out an open heart surgery. Not one single doctor. The open heart surgery means you cut your bone, lift up your rib cage, look at the heart, play around with it, take out the vein from here or here, do a bypass, that's what they call a bypass, like a road bypass, because the vein is blocked. The road is blocked here, so you take one vein, do a bypass this way, so the blood flows. That's what it is. Complicated surgery. But in this day and age, for us not to have a Fijian doctor that can carry out open heart surgery, I think is quite shameful. You don't turn an open heart surgeon overnight. Just because I've done an MBBS doesn't mean I can come and cut his chest open and play with his heart. I need 10-15 years worth of experience. I need exposure. So part and parcel of this PPP, the condition is whoever comes in must offer open heart surgery 24/7. They must also offer chemotherapy. There's people dying of cancer too. We don't have chemotherapy, full services in Fiji. Oncology. They have to build a new wing at Lautoka and have a couple of operating theatres where you have viewing areas so students can also watch and see. That's what we're doing. But the fact that we don't have these opportunities available means a lot of our people travel to India, Australia, New Zealand for surgeries. We obviously want to keep the money in Fiji. The other advantage, of course, is once you have these kind of facilities available, you'll get an increase in tourism. You get an increase in retirement villages being set up. I'll give you an example, without mentioning the name of the company. It's a very large international company. You would probably know it if I mention the name. But they wanted to have their large conference here for all the executives to come to Fiji. Hotel facilities, airline connectivity, everything was great. But it's a very wealthy company. So one of the things they do, they send a reconnaissance team. They came down here, they said, we want to see what kind of medical facilities you have. Because what if one of our executives has a heart attack on his medical attention. They went to Nadi hospital, Lautoka hospital, they said, thank you very much. We'll go to some other country. So we missed out. We literally missed out on millions of dollars. We've had a lot of Japanese companies that want to set up retirement villages. In Japan, nearly 3/4 of the population is what you call a very aging population. You go to Japan, I was there last year, you have people who work as security guards in schools who are 70, 80 years old. People who serve in the car parking lot are 80 years old, 85 years old. Very aging population. Now they want to have retirement villages, so when it's cold in winter, they want somewhere to come and spend their money and enjoy the warmth of the sun. But they won't do that unless they get full tertiary medical care available at their doorstep. So that's why we've also chosen Lautoka and Ba for this. We're setting up a kidney dialysis center in Suva and Nadi, one in Nandera, one in Nadi. It should be up by October. Dr. Krishnan, who's the only nephrologist in Fiji, and indeed in the South Pacific, has said there's approximately probably about 600 people who may need access to kidney dialysis. It's not that big a problem compared to what we have in the cardiovascular space. More people have heart problems. But we will subsidize 50% of the cost if the person earns less than $30,000 a year. Sugar, we're continuing with our funding for subsidy. As you know, we started the previous year. We give subsidies for weedicide, fertilizers, farm mechanization, etc., and planting of new crops. Now, our view is, and it's obviously a proven view, that in order to truly assist farmers, there's no point saying we'll give $100 a ton. What if the cost of producing that ton of sugar costs you $90? You only get a $10 margin, $10 profit. But if the cost of producing that cane is $70 or $80, then of course you make a $20 margin. So if we offer you $85 a ton, and we bring down the cost of production to say $50 or $40 even, then your margin is a lot higher. So it's not how much you get paid, but it's how much it costs you to produce that ton of cane. All cane farmers will know what I'm talking about, except the politicians don't know. Now, what we've said also, we're guaranteeing tonnage, or your price per ton. For the next 3 years, we'll pay $85 per ton for sugarcane, irrespective of what the world market price is. We're setting up what we call a stabilization fund. The way a stabilization fund works is this. So the money in the stabilization fund will come from FSC. They've sold some of the assets. They'll put aside some money in the stabilization fund. We'll contribute it in the subsequent years. So assuming next year, we're saying you'll get $85 a ton. Assuming next year, the world market price for sugar, FSC gets say paid $70 a ton. But they've guaranteed you $85. They will pay you $85. The difference between 85 and 70, which is $15, will come from the stabilization fund. The following year, FSC may get $100 a ton. You will still get $85 a ton. The balance of the $15 will go into the stabilization fund. Because who knows, the following year it may drop to $50. You'll still get $85 a ton. That savings we made from the previous year, we'll pay from that. That's how a stabilization fund works. So we set the price at $85, and obviously we'll be working for the next few years to do that. Agriculture, we've increased their funding by another $10 million. Now this is something that we're quite excited about, which is what we call building the goat meat industry. Today, most people when they buy chicken or want to eat chicken meat, most people, they go to the supermarket and buy frozen chicken, number 11, 12, 15, 14, whatever it is. If you ask the older people now, 50 years ago, nobody had frozen chicken. If you want to eat chicken, you go to somebody's house, kill the chicken, pour the hot water, pull out the feathers. Mainly the women did it. Some men did it too. That's how you ate chicken. Today it's all frozen chicken. Only one company started this, Crest. And of course now you got Rooster. If tomorrow Crest and Rooster shuts down, you won't get chicken. We'll have to import all our chicken meat from overseas, from New Zealand. That's the reality. So it's an organized poultry industry. What Crest does, what Rooster does, they don't grow all the chickens themselves, they grow some of it. Then they go to a villager, they go to a farmer, they say to him, look, I've got 200 chicks, 5-day-old chicks. You grow these chicks into full-grown chickens in 36 weeks, you give it back to me, and I'll pay you X number of dollars. A lot of farmers are making money that way. A lot of villages are making money that way. That's the Crest system, that's how it works. We want to do a similar thing with goats. Everybody in Fiji who eats meat eats goat. Goat is a lean meat. But we don't have an organized goat meat industry. You should be able to, once we finish with this, be able to go to New World Supermarket, buy a frozen goat. Hopefully chilled goat too. There's one farm between Ba and Tavua, they have 1,000 goats. What they're saying to us, they've got reached enough capacity, they can give kids, kids are baby goats, that's what you call it. They'll give kids to villagers and farmers at a price. You grow it for us for 18 months, 2 years, however long it takes, we'll buy it from you at that price. They have a slaughterhouse, they kill it, they freeze it, they chill it, and they supply it to the supermarkets. That's what Crest and Red Rooster does. The similar thing we want to do with the goat meat industry. And like I said, most people eat it. So hopefully we stop buying goat meat from New Zealand. Eat less lamb chops, eat goat meat. Of course, some people like lamb chops. The other one, of course, is the brucellosis free farms. A lot of the cattle in Fiji caught TB and brucellosis. At the moment when there's a farm of cattle, if like 3 cows have got the TB, what they're doing at the moment is they kill the 3 cows. What they do in New Zealand, if they're in this paddock or this farm, 3 cows, even though 3 cows have caught it, they'll kill the entire stock. Kill the entire stock, fix up the pasture altogether, grow new pasture, then you get rid of it completely. We have to do that. Otherwise, we'll continue to have that problem with TB and brucellosis. Civil service, of course, we've introduced what we call performance management systems, where people get assessed individually. So we're doing that by January of next year, and they'll get paid backdated to August of this year. Itauke Affairs Board and provincial councils, these people aren't technically civil servants, but we have actually increased their salaries, bringing it in alignment with civil servants. As you know, civil servants have received a huge pay rise. Many of them have received a huge pay rise. So bringing the salaries in alignment with them too. Those people work in provincial councils and Itauke Affairs Board. Very quickly, STT and ECAL, Service Turnover Tax, ECAL, Environment Climate Adaptation Levy. That's the tax you pay if you go and stay at a hotel, you go and rent a car, you go to the cinemas, you go and drink beer in a pub, or you go and, what's the other one? Oh, eat at an expensive restaurant, like in Denarau. That's the tax you pay. 10% and 6% on top of that. Now, what we've done is that we've said those businesses that earn less than $1.25 million, you don't pay STT or ECAL. So if you go and drink beer at a pub that earns less than makes less than $1.25 million, you don't pay STT or ECAL. So you may go to one of those clubs, the social clubs. So you don't have to pay STT and ECAL because they make less than $1.25 million gross turnover. Of course, this is not applicable on salaries or anything like that. I heard one political party in Suva, they were campaigning. And they went there and said to people, we will remove STT and ECAL from your groceries. It does not apply there. They're lying about it. What we're saying over here is that we'll remove it from those businesses. As I mentioned, 150% tax deduction for paternity and family care leave. If you are an employer and you send your staff for training, you can claim 150% tax deduction for the cost of training your staff. We also are giving a 250% tax deduction if you research and develop in ICT and renewable energy. ICT, of course, is a big area. We're expanding the initiatives, tax incentives for that. There's a company in Lautoka that's hired about 5 accountants, and they're filing tax returns for Australians living in Australia. And they're doing it from here. It's a huge growth area. That's one area that we want to actually encourage. If you go to certain parts of Fiji, many of the buildings are run down. You go to certain towns and cities. We're saying to these building owners, if you invest $1 million or more, we give you a investment allowance of 25%. Next year, in May, Fiji has been given the privilege of hosting the Asian Development Bank meeting. In fact, on the flight back to Suva this evening, they're all on the flight, they came to see the place. 4,500 people will come to Nadi for just 1 week. That's a lot of people. And it will give us an opportunity to showcase Fiji. But what we're saying, anybody wants to contribute towards the hosting of that, if they contribute $10,000 or more, we give them 150% tax deduction. If you buy an electric bus, you get a 25% capital deduction. We're actually working with ADB and World Bank to get some electric buses in Fiji. If anybody privately wants to do that, we do that. We'll give them 55% tax deduction, capital deduction. Also, if you set up electric charging stations, we also get some incentives there too. We've zero-rated duty on these fruits, apples, grapes, oranges, kiwi fruits, all these imported fruits and vegetables. A few years ago, it used to be 32%. We brought it down to 15%, brought it down to 5%, now it's zero-rated. Because these fruits aren't grown in Fiji, we want you to be able to eat it and be able to afford it, so we've zero-rated duty on these items. We've zero-rated duty on tea that you drink every day. So no more duty on tea. A couple of years ago, we put an excise duty on locally produced carbonated drinks, the fizzy drinks. Because we have a lot of people who have diabetes, we want your kids to drink less sweetened drinks. But what some of the companies started doing, they started importing cheap carbonated drinks. So we put on a duty there, $2 per litre extra. Of course, alcohol and cigarettes has gone up by 15%. Plastic bag levy has increased from 10 cents to 20 cents. Now, plastic bag levy, if you go to the market and buy your chorreya or your bele or whatever, they put in the plastic bag. They don't charge you levy for that because it's not applicable in the markets. It's only in supermarkets, service stations, pharmacies, etc. It's gone up to 20 cents. But let me warn you now, we're giving you a 2-year advance notice. By 2020, it will be banned completely. No more single-use plastic bags. I'm old enough to know that when I was very young, when my parents used to go to the market, we didn't have plastic bags. You had the jolly. Reusable sacks. A lot of women's groups make it. We have to get used to using that again. It's better for the environment. You can see the kind of pollution plastic bags cause and the blockages it causes. This nice strip in front of the airport, those bougainvilleas they planted. Most of the times you go, it's all the plastic bag is caught in the bougainvillea, covering all the flowers. A few years ago, we brought in a law that said you cannot bring in second-hand cars that are 5 years or more than 5 years old. Right? The second-hand cars must be 5 years or younger. Of course, a lot of the car dealers started bringing in cars that are 4 years, 11 months old. 4 years, 8 months old. The reason why we want you to bring newer cars, of course, is because the newer the car, the better the technology, the better fuel efficiency. It means less pollution also. So to encourage the car dealers and you to bring in newer cars, what we are saying, if you bring in a car that's 2 years or younger, instead of paying 32% duty, you'll pay 15% duty. Halved it. So please buy newer cars. It's better for you. Also, those of you who have taxis, as you know, taxis paid 15% duty. Now if you bring in a car that's 2 years or younger, you'll pay 7.5% duty for the purposes of using it as a taxi. This is the value of our GDP, gross domestic product. Put in simple terms, I could say the size of the production every year of our goods. in the country. That's how you measure the size of your economy. You can see it was worth 200 million, 1 billion, 2 billion in 1990, 3.6 billion in 2000, 2008 it was worth 5.6 billion, today it's worth 11.3 billion. You can see so quickly between 2008 and 2018, it's jumped from 5.6 to 11.3, double. Why? Because the economy has been growing for 9 years straight. See, before our economy, 1 year it would grow, maybe 2 years it would grow, then the following year there will be a negative growth. Then it might grow again, negative growth. But when you consistently grow your economy, what happens is that it creates more jobs. You become actually wealthier as a country. Some of the signs you can see is how many cars are on the road. People have more money in their pockets. We've created 40,000 new jobs in the past 5 years, and I'll show you how. So, you can see over here. See over here, the economy grew by 1%, went down by minus 1.4. We've now been growing 9 years straight. This over here was very low because of Cyclone Winston. Cyclone Winston cost us 1.3 billion US dollars worth of damage or loss to our GDP. You can imagine if Winston had not occurred, this blue line would have been much higher. As a result of us growing for 9 years, the economy is doing a lot better. We are projected to grow again for the next 3 years. Normally projections are done for 3 years. 3.4, 3.2, 3.2 again. Of course, if we don't get a cyclone, it can grow even much more. Now, as a result of that, this is what's happened. Unemployment has dropped to 4.5%, the lowest it's been in 20 years. 40,000 new jobs have been created in the last 5 years. This is the Reserve Bank of Fiji survey. They look at the job advertisements in the Fiji Times and Fiji Sun. They started doing both papers in 2014 over here. This over here is FNPF membership. FNPF is a good way of measuring to see how many new jobs have been created. The more new members you get, that means more people are coming to the job market. 20,000 more people came in FNPF in 2017. 20,000 in 2017. This blue line are those people who've completely withdrawn the FNPF. They've retired or something. So if you take 20,000 less than 7,000, net compulsory membership is 13,000, grew in 2017. So this is the advantage of your economy going straight 9 years in a row. If you look at countries like Australia, they became really wealthy after World War II, post-World War II. And you can see the growth was there for about 20 years. They put in the Snowy Mountain hydro dam and all of that. So that's what we are looking forward towards. Of course, the trick is there must be consistency in policies. If you start chopping, changing things, then the market gets very uncomfortable. Investors get uncomfortable. Now, inflation. People talk about inflation. Cheese ke daam bajasti hoige, right? Price of things have gone up. Everybody over here eats roti, you eat bread, bambakao, pani keke, scones, cakes. What is it made out of? Made out of flour. What is flour made out of? Wheat. Do we grow wheat? No, we don't. Only 2 companies in Fiji bring in wheat to make flour. Punja and Sons here in Lautoka and FMF in Suva. Where do they buy their wheat from? They buy it from Australia. When they buy the wheat from Australia and it comes to their mills, they grind the wheat. When they grind the wheat, they make flour. We price control flour because we know it's a basic food item. So it's price controlled. So they'll come to the Commerce Commission and say, look, we bought the wheat at $1,000 a ton. It cost us this much electricity to make the wheat, this much labor cost. This is the margin we want. Commerce Commission will work it out and say, okay, you can make a 3% margin. Then they sell it to the supermarket. Then that's also price control. Then they'll say to the Commerce Commission, say, okay, you can make 2-3% margin. That's how pricing works. We price control rice. We price control cooking oil. We price control a number of other things. It's price controlled. But if tomorrow Australia puts up the wheat price from $1,000 a ton to $5,000 a ton, we cannot do anything about it. That's the price we're buying it at. What we can control is after they bought it and after they make flour, that's when we price control the margin. In the same way with fuel, the fuel that you use in your cars. We price control it once the fuel lands in Fiji. Only after it lands in Fiji can we price control it. So if tomorrow there's a war in the Middle East, Donald Trump makes a decision that affects the production of fuel or oil, we have no control. You know how every 3 months you have the fuel price review? Those of you who are interested in it, you will notice that whenever it's a winter in Europe or North America, the price of fuel goes up. Why? They need fuel to keep warm. Huge demand for it. Production stays the same, huge demand for it, price will go up, we have no control. But when it lands at an expensive rate, we then price control it when it lands in Fiji. That's how the system works. So you need to understand when people talk, they put up the price of the fuel, we're not doing it. That's the price they're buying it at. What can we do? Unless you want government to subsidize your fuel. We spend all our money in that then. The other thing, of course, that affects the price of goods, cyclones. In Suva, after Cyclone Winston, a small bunch of bananas that normally cost $5 was costing $20. Long beans was $5 a bundle. Then it of course dropped down. Yongona went to $200 a kilo. Some people still drink it at the same rate. It's $140 a kilo at the moment. So when the RBF measures inflation, they take the basket of things that people normally use in their day-to-day living. Then that's how you measure inflation. Let me take you to this. 2015, inflation was 1.6%, very low, of which alcohol, tobacco and kava contributed 0.6. 1% was other things, fuel, flour, all of those types of things. Look at how it changes. 2016, after Winston, 3.9% inflation rate. Tobacco, alcohol and kava was 2.7%. Because kava was so expensive. Other things contributed 1.2%. You must remember the price of fuel over here was very low. Price of fuel a few months back was about $39 a barrel of crude oil, as they say. Today, as I speak, it's about $63, $65 a barrel. In 2008, it was $140 a barrel. So, if you look at 2017, inflation was 2.8. Of this, 2% came from these three items only. The others was only 0.8%. But look at it now. As of June this year, inflation is 4.6. It's gone up. It's not the final figure. Of course, at the end of the year, you do the final figure. 1.7 is from alcohol, tobacco, and kava, but 2.9 because the price of fuel has almost doubled since the previous time. That's what affects prices. So we have to understand that. What affects pricing? Foreign reserves. A lot of people don't understand foreign reserves or don't understand the importance of foreign reserves. Nearly everything you interact with on a daily basis comes from overseas. This gentleman here, he's wearing a watch. He's wearing this glasses frame. Maybe he's got gel in his hair. This jacket he's wearing. The car he came in. All of these things are from overseas. I'm holding this. This is made in overseas. This is made in overseas. That screen is made overseas. These lights are made overseas. So every time you buy something, you have to buy those things not in Fijian dollars. The Japanese does not sell you the money, the car in Fijian dollars. They sell you in Japanese yen. They sell you things in US dollars. All our fuel is bought from Singapore in US dollars. We buy things in euros. We buy things in Aussie dollars. So you need to have enough foreign reserves to trade. Colloquially speaking, if some country runs out of reserves, people say, oh, that country is going bankrupt because they no longer can trade. So the international benchmark says, this is the number of months here, that you should have at least 4 months worth of foreign reserves to do good trading. That benchmark is there. In 2006, we had $515 million worth of foreign reserves, well below the benchmark. And you can see it's been growing. Today we have $1.6 billion worth of foreign reserves. What is really interesting though is this. 2010 we had $1.3 billion. If you take that across, it's worth about 4.8 months worth of trading at $1.3 billion. But even though we have 2.1 billion, we have 5 months worth. Why? Because the economy is growing really fast. When the economy grows really fast, people demand for more goods and services, it puts a pressure on your foreign reserve. Today, every single day in Fiji, somebody in Fiji is getting connected to electricity. We're spending $50 million now on connecting people to the EFL grid. The moment somebody gets connected to electricity, what do? First thing they do is buy a fridge. They may buy a TV, microwave machine, maybe a washing machine, maybe a second TV, buy a mobile phone, stereo. All of these things, none of them are made in Fiji. So as people get more connected, more wealthier, the demand for goods and services that come from overseas, it puts pressure on the foreign reserves. Now, a lot of people in Fiji talk about debt. They don't understand debt. There are two ways of measuring debt. Now, let me put it this way. One is what you call the dollar value of your debt. So if this man here, this gentleman here has got a loan with the bank, he may have a loan of $100,000. This gentleman here may have a loan of $500,000. Say, oh, this guy has got very little debt. He's got $500,000. But he may be making $2 million a year. He may be making only $30,000 a year. Who's got more of a debt burden? He has. He's making less money but plenty of debt. He's making reasonable amount of money, even though the value of his debt is higher than his, it's easy for him to do the repayments. So you can measure your debt in two ways. One is the dollar value, there's $500,000 versus 100,000, or the other one based on the size of your wealth, which is your GDP. So as a percentage of our GDP, our debt has been decreasing. It's now 47% of our GDP. This is a good measurement of debt. This is the dollar value of our debt. Today our debt is $5.1 billion, Fijian dollars. Now, when all governments in the world, I would say 99.9% of all the governments in the world, run what you call deficits. In other words, governments generally, they collect money and they spend money. 99% of the governments in the world spend more money than what they collect, because that's the nature of governments. You need to provide services. You people need street lights here, you need footpaths here. I see it's very dark. You need footpaths here. We have to do all of that. That's government's nature. It does not mean once you put the footpath in the street light, you're going to pay us money. When he improves his business, he expects you, when you use his service, that you're going to pay him money. A business will always invest to get a return. Government never invests to get a direct return. We may get what we call an indirect return. So if we put footpaths and street lights here, it's safer for you to walk. Your quality of your life improves. We may get less road accidents. less people may get robbed. That's the return on our investment. You will feel confident. You say, I'm living in a good place. Votualevu, let's go and live in Votualevu. The value of your land will go up. That's the return we get. We don't get it directly in our pockets. So that's how governments work. Excuse me. Now, when Fiji became independent, the Ratu Mara government borrowed money. They borrowed money. Then, of course, you had the 4-week-old Dr. Bavandra government. When the Dr. Bavandra government, unfortunately, was there for only 4 weeks, in that 4 weeks, he may have incurred some debt, his government. He would have incurred debt, but he would have, in those 4 weeks, have to pay some of the debt of the Ratu Mara government. Then, of course, you had the Rambuka government. When the Rambuka government came in, effectively from 87 till 1999, they borrowed money also, but they have to pay off Ratu Mara government debt and the Bavandra government debt. Then you had the Chaudhry government for 1 year. They borrowed money also, but they have to pay the Rambuka government debt, Bavandra government debt, Ratu Mara government debt. Then you had the Garase government. They borrowed money. They have to pay the Chaudhry government debt, Rambuka government debt, Bavandra government debt. By this stage, probably most of the Ratu Mara government debt has been paid off. Because normally the government debts for about 30 years. That's how long the term the governments borrow for. Of course, then the Beni Marama government came after the Garase government. They borrowed money, but have to pay everybody else's debt. Then came the Fiji First government. They borrowed money also. We are borrowing money. And we pay everybody else's debt. When the Beni Marama government came, or was appointed, they inherited a debt of $2.8 billion. That was the debt at the end of 2006. That is the value of the debt. Since then, of course, they've incurred debts, and so the difference between that and that is the debt amount that's been borrowed by the Beni Marama government, incurred by the Beni Marama government. Now, thankfully, in Fiji's case, we've never defaulted on any of our loans. Nobody said, well, oh, that debt was incurred by the Ratu Mara government, we're not going to pay it. Because when governments borrow money, it's not borrowed under the name of the Prime Minister or the political party. It's borrowed under the name of the Fijian government. So every government is liable to pay the other government's debt. Because we owe it as a country. So we paid our debts. We never defaulted. So, the other example I want to give is this. Assuming I have $100 and I go and borrow $20, you'd say my debt to GDP ratio is 20%. 20 over 100 is 20%. But I suddenly get $500, I've become wealthier. But I said, I'm going to lash out now. Instead of borrowing $20, I'm going to 2.5 times, borrow more than 2.5 times. I'll go and borrow $50. So even though I borrowed $50, 2.5 times more than what I originally borrowed, what is it as a percentage of my wealth? Only 10%. Because I'm now making $500. But as percent of my wealth is 10%. I borrowed $20, it was 20%. That's how you show the difference. Now, let's look at other countries. Look at Japan's debt to GDP ratio, 239.2%. Singapore, 112%. USA, 107.4%. USA is the most debt-ridden country in the world in terms of dollar value. Look at where Fiji sits. You compare it to all the other island nations. Of course, we have not done all the countries. We try to compare it to other countries. We're only 47%. What does it mean? This is a percent of GDP. What is it in dollar terms? You know, dollar value. Everybody likes the dollar value. This is in US dollars. Japan's debt is $11.8 trillion, US dollars. That's their debt. You can Google this, you can find it, it's not some secret. It's all available everywhere. Singapore's debt is $332.7 billion. USA has got the most debt, $19.9 trillion. Nobody says, everybody wants to go to USA. Nobody says USA has got so much debt. Nobody says Canada has got so much debt. Look at Canada, $1.4 trillion. 92.3%. 92.3%. In other words, the value of the GDP, 92.3% is in debt. This is in US dollars, to make it easier. We are, of course, 5.1 billion Fijian dollars converts to about 2.47 billion US dollars. Our debt to GDP ratio is 47%. You see over here, USA, even though it's got more debt than Japan, 19.9 trillion as opposed to 11.8 trillion, as a percent of GDP, theirs is lower because, of course, the US economy is bigger. So, even though it's higher in dollar value, it will show as less percentage. You know, the same example I gave about 500 versus 50 and 100 versus 20. Now, this is a very interesting country before I finish off on this page. Mauritius is very similar to Fiji. They had sugar base, they got into tourism, but Mauritius basically did what we are doing now, but in a much bigger scale. They built 4-lane roads everywhere, electricity, water, invested a lot, made a fantastic airport, revamped their national carrier. They developed a lot of land, set up ICT parks, gave away land for free to foreign investors. And their game plan was this, because Mauritius is close to Africa. And Africa is the fastest growing continent in the world. It's got a very young population base, about 65% or something. It's below the age of 25. They went to all the international companies, they said, you come and set up your headquarters here to service Africa. Because when you say Africa, people get a bit scared, you know, civil war, this, that, whatever. So a lot of companies came and set up their base in Mauritius to service Africa. They went to India, got 2 or 3 Indian hospitals, come and set up shop here, gave them incentives, tax holidays and all of that. Then they went to Africans, rich Africans, and others say, if you want to open heart surgery, don't go to India, don't go to Europe, don't go to France, come to Mauritius. And by the way, when you have your open heart surgery or when you have this surgery, you can have 2 weeks holiday in our wonderful resorts. And that's what you call good debt, because they're building the capacity. Some people have said, oh, you know, you're incurring some debt now, what will happen to the future generations? The future generations won't have to build a 4-lane road. We're building a 4-lane road now here in Nadi. Will their children have to build it? No, we're doing it for them now. If you build a road today, ask him. If you build a road today, you want to build it 20 years later, 10 years later, it'll cost you far more than building it today. I don't know how many of you have noticed. You go around and look at the 4-lane road. What do you not see anymore? You don't see any more power lines. We put it underground. Next time there's a cyclone, there's nothing to blow down. So it's what you call building resilience in infrastructure. In Fiji, the traditional way, he'll also tell you, when you build a road, you put the water pipes underneath the road. When there's a leakage in the water pipe, you dig up the road to fix up the pipe. Cost incurred twice. That was the thinking. We've tried to take out as much water pipe as possible, put it on the side of the road. The water pipe leakage, you dig up the side, don't dig up the road. In Lambasa, they built an airport many years ago between the bend of a river. Now when there's larger planes, you can't build the airport, expand the airport. So you have to relocate the airport. If they thought and used their foresight and brains and wisdom, they would have built the airport on the other side of the river. There's so much more flat land. You see? We now have to pay for that. So everybody's asking, when are you going to build a new airport in Lambasa? So when you build infrastructure, you need to think about the future. In the same example that I gave, and I always tell these people this story, and I tell the high school kids, when you have a fisherman or a woman who goes out to catch fish, and they come after a hard night of fishing, and they sit by the roadside and sell their fish, but they don't have electricity. $50 a bundle for fish. By midday they are getting worried because the fish might rot. It's a hot day. They keep on throwing water on it. By the afternoon you come along because you know they've got no fridge, you start bargaining it down. You say, give it to me for $15, I'll take the whole lot. And the poor guy has to sell it to you $15. Right? Now, if the moment you connect him to electricity, he first thing he buys is a cooler. So when he sells his fish $50, he knows he's got ice. You come along, bargain, he said, bugger off, I'm going to sell it at $50. If he does not sell it, he'll keep it in the cooler. Next day he'll put the fish out, throw water on it, say fresh fish for sale, you'll buy it for $50. That's what happens. You've increased the income level. You've increased the productive capacity of people. That's what you do when you connect people to infrastructure. Now, we heard that Rambuka made a statement saying that, Chinese are going to take over Fiji, they're going to take away our ports. It's all nonsense, utter nonsense. These are our debts, foreign debt. Asian Development Bank, we owe 348.5 million. International Fund for Agriculture Development, 2.2. World Bank, 148.6. JICA, 11.5. Exim Bank of China, 516. Global Bond, 416.2. That's about 29.7% of our debt. We like to borrow money for government from domestic borrowers and foreign borrowers. We like to keep at least 30% of our debt offshore, 70% in Fiji. It's better to keep 70% in Fiji because you pay in Fijian dollars. When you have foreign currency loans, sometimes when the value changes, you can get a lot of exposure. So that's our mix. So nobody's taking over our airport or ports or whatever it is. I can tell you where the Chinese loans are for. There was a small Chinese loan that was borrowed by the Garase government to build an ICT building in Berkeley Crescent in Suva. Then there were 7 projects for which the Beni Marama government borrowed money from the Exim Bank of China. And I'll tell you what they are. Nambawalu Draketi, tar sealing of the road. Buddha Bay, tar sealing of the road. Sawani Syria in Naitasiri, tar sealing of the road. Singatoka Valley Road, those of you been there, tar sealing of the road. Moto Ba, building of the bridge and tar sealing of the road. The Rewai Public Rental Housing Complex and the Housing Authority Subdivision in Tatirua in Suva. Since 2012, we've not borrowed any money. It's silly to say that they're going to take over something because when governments borrow money, we don't mortgage anything. Because you're a sovereign. It's what you call a sovereign's debt. Governments never give guarantees. They give guarantees, but they never mortgage their land. They don't say, okay, we want to borrow money to build a road. You can take this road as a mortgage. If we don't pay, you can take over the road. Of course we can't do that. But that's what they were saying. It does not happen that way. Okay, coming to the end, just to put into perspective, from 1980 to 2006, which is about 27 years, whatever government was there, they spent $3.5 billion in what we call capital expenditure. Capital expenditure, there are 2 types of expenditures government has. One is operating, the day-to-day running of government. The salaries of teachers, the salaries of civil servants. We've come here, we're staying at a hotel tonight, paying for the hotel. We've come in these government vehicles, the paying of the fuel, buying the toilet paper, photocopying paper, whatever it is, travel. That's all what you call operating expenditure. The other expenditure, like in this school, would be a capital expenditure, which is building things. You need capital funds to build a nursing station, a road, jetty, whatever it is. So, governments from 80 to 2006 spent $3.5 billion in capital expenditure. From 2007 to this financial year, which is 11 years, nearly half of that, or less than half than that, we've spent double the amount, $7 billion. But what is really interesting is this. Every time they spend on capital expenditure over here, every dollar they spent, they borrowed 76 cents. We borrowing only 36 cents. Why? Because we have what we call an operating savings. This is how much money we've been saving here. This is from 1980. You see how much the governments were saving each year? So we have been smart about some of the things we've been doing. Most of the government vehicles here, we actually lease them. We no longer buy them. This is why the police force is getting 200 new vehicles, because we lease them. So you can get the police vehicles, more police escort, 130 motorcycles. It's all leased. So we don't have to spend too much money upfront. You ask any businessman, if you want to go and buy 500 vehicles one go, if you buy them all, say average price of $100,000, you can do the calculation yourself. But if you buy 500 vehicles but you lease it, you don't buy it but you lease it, your expenditure amount is less. So, we this year anticipate to save about $1 billion. Last year we saved about a little over $900 million. So when we have higher savings, then we use that savings for capital expenditure. We build things. Then if we need more money, that's the only time we go and borrow. This is why we are spending only we only have 36 cents that is borrowed from our capital expenditure. So again, this goes to show we spend 40% of our budget on capital expenditure. So, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end. It's very much family focused, as you see. We have not tweaked it around much. Basically on the same track. There's a consistency in policies. It's basically building upon what we already have. There's a very strong foundation for a thriving economy. Economy is moving along quite strongly. GDP per capita has increased to $12,000. Economy is growing 9 years in a row, and the fiscal position remains strong. You can go to our website. Every single thing that I've said is there, including these things. This is the budget book. This budget book is there. You can go and look at yourself. So if I open a page, it says Ministry of Forests, Forestry General Administration. It says how much money this department is getting for wages, how much money they're getting for fuel, spare parts, maintenance, office equipment, buildings, stationery, printing, land rental, books, periodical, whatever it is. Every single thing is there. You can go and have a look. We also have, you know how I talked to you about ECAL and STT, Environment Climate Adaptation Levy. By law, last year we passed a law. Generally when governments collect money, we then spend it whichever way we want based on the budget. So that ministry needs more money, we give it more money based on the budget. But every single cent we collect from ECAL and STT, we can only spend it for environmental and climate adaptation measures. And we have to publish it. It's published here. You can get this also. It shows what we've done with it. People have got, water tanks, rural electrification, seawalls, people's homes have been moved, sugarcane access roads, all of this comes under this. So every single cent is accounted, you can also get this. We also have, for example, rural electrification programs. Everything is accounted for. So I open this page, Western Division. I don't have my glasses, but it says here, Hari Charan and Sanjesh Prasad, Wuna Kawandra Subdivision, Korovuto Nandi, 13 applicants, cost of $34,111. That means these people this year will get connected. Everybody is listed here. The other one is, sorry, I'm getting blind. Nandala Tavua, Korovuto Village Tavua, Lewa Village. All of these areas is all listed. Thanks. So, you have all these different areas. Batia, Sasarava Settlement Tavua. All these areas will be covered this year. I've had people call me up in previous years, hey, you got my home listed. When is it being done? That's the level of accountability. So you can see that. Then, of course, we've got the Water Authority Fiji, which village, which settlement will get water, where the major expenditures are, what's the size of the water tank. Fiji Roads Authority, how the money will be spent, which are the major cost expenditure areas. Of course, we've also announced that we'll be starting the 4-laning of the road between Nadi and Lautoka towards the end of next financial year, because we need to get a 4-lane road between Nadi and Lautoka. It's very important. Then, of course, we've got social services, general administration, economic services, infrastructure services, everything is there. You can go to the website, good bedtime reading. You get to know a lot about your economy. And also we've got some copies out here if you want to take it home in a package. It was also put out in the Fiji Sun. So hopefully you had bought that day's Fiji Sun and you had collected that. So it's here in a package. If you want it, you can take it home. This shows the National Budget Kit. All that information I've given you, I've read out, is there. And this is the ECAL in action. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll now like to open up the floor, if you have any questions, any issues you want to raise. If you have any personal matters, please don't raise it. We can see you afterwards. You've got the staff. But focus on the budget and any questions you may have on the economy, etc. We've been to places where people have asked us about minimum wage. You can ask that also, not a problem. Anything to do with the economy, you can ask. Okay, there's somebody going around with a mic, and you can ask the question. This gentleman obviously is very eager. Thank you very much.